Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Dan Harris, joined by Mike Tagliere, and you can find us on Twitter at DanHarris80 and at Mike Tagliere NFL. Today's episode is brought to you by Away. Away makes first-class luggage at coach prices that allow you to charge your phone on the go. For $20 off a suitcase, go to awaytravel.com/fantasypros and use the promo code FantasyPros. Tags, have been a busy day of football. How's it going?
Oh, it's good. It's weird. There's like games that are still like plenty of game left going on. So it's just weird. Usually when we go to record this, it's just like we're down to the final wire. And fortunately, I've had a few hours to let the Bears loss simmer and get over it. So, I mean, I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Oh, did the Bears lose today?
I can't remember.
Look, I mean, this comes from a Jets fan, so this is basically the saddest podcast of all time. but look, let's jump into it. Who's your biggest winner of the day?
I mean, I'd be wrong if I didn't say somebody outside of Tevin Coleman, scoring 4 touchdowns. That's going to probably do it for you most weeks. Knowing that Kyle Shanahan's willing to give him 20 touches in games that have a somewhat neutral game script, games that are close knit. Obviously, this game was a blowout, so he only saw, I think it was 13 or 14 touches. But obviously, scoring 4 touchdowns is going to help make up for some of that lack in volume. So, he's definitely the biggest winner of today.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers really, greatly impressed me, just dominating the Panthers there. Yeah, he only got 11 carries, same as Matt Breida there with 11 for 35. I know Breida left at one point with an ankle injury. I don't know if he came back or not, but Raheem Mostert also got 9 carries. So they split it around a little bit, but certainly Coleman with 11 carries, 105 yards, 3 touchdowns, plus 2 catches for 13 yards. So where do you have him rest of season going forward?
Coleman, I moved him all the way up to, I think, RB15 for the rest of the season. So I've come full circle on that, thinking like, it's a timeshare. But the thing is, the truth of the matter is, like, once you get up into that area, we're talking about guys like Marlon Mack who are somewhat game script dependent. Melvin Gordon, who's been disappointing. Josh Jacobs plays on a terrible football team. So hold on a second, Raiders fans. I know you're going to get mad at me for saying that. They're not a playoff team. I mean, it's not a team that is going to generate a whole lot of points. I know they're hanging with the Texans as we're speaking, but Josh Jacobs isn't that conversation, so I'm not like totally poo-pooing on him. James Conner, another a relatively bad Steelers team. So to put him in that conversation with those running backs just feels right.
I'll be honest, I don't have any problem putting him there at all. I mean, I had him 18 coming into this week, but you had him 23rd, so that's a pretty big move this late in the season, but I like it. I fully endorse it. He's been running really, really well, and he's certainly the guy to own in that backfield. How about your biggest loser?
Biggest loser is Larry Fitzgerald. I feel like FanDuel knows something.
They're just baiting you, telling you to try to take him every time.
They really are. I mean, he's been around like 50, I think he was 5,600 this week, and they're just like tempting you to play him every single week. And it's just, we've had matchups that seem like they should be smash spots, like absolute crushing spots against Atlanta, against Cincinnati, the Giants, the Saints. So many matchups here just scream like you should blow up Larry Fitzgerald. And I mean, the Saints were down their 2 starting, so not only were they down their starting slot cornerback, but they were down the backup slot cornerback going to a rookie, which it might be an upgrade, but he has just been going downhill steadily. And the people that were kind of saying that it was Christian Kirk, the reason that he had been slumping is because Christian Kirk wasn't in the lineup, and wait till Kirk comes back, and he came back and Fitzgerald didn't do anything. So definitely the biggest loser for me, Larry Fitzgerald. I bumped him down. He's no longer in my top 36 wide receivers.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether or not he's droppable. Look, I love Fitz. I always have. I have him every year because, again, I felt like last year you kind of had to throw it out. It's not like he was completely over the hill. Yeah, Josh Rosen throwing him the ball. You figured this could be a bounce back year from, and he started out great. And since then, it has just slowly gone downhill to the point where now he has 3 catches over his last 2 games, just 20 yards total. His average depth of target has gone way down. The only thing I will say here is he did narrowly miss coming down with a touchdown catch. He almost got both feet in. So that would have changed the equation. But I agree, he has been steadily dropping, and he was a guy who essentially I was going to ask, is he droppable at this point? So my guess is you're going to say no, right? You still have to hold on to a guy like Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, if you're in a pinch, if you're in a 10-team league, maybe, but I assume 12-team or deeper, you're still holding Fitz. You're just not starting him at the moment. Is that fair?
Correct. Yeah, he did. I mean, he made it outside my top 36, which just means he's not an every week starter. You don't have to start him every week. You don't have to feel like you do, but he's a solid bench player that, we're having bye weeks come up. Like there's 4 teams on bye in week 9. I think there's 6 teams on bye in week 10. So, I mean, or in week 11, one of those weeks, there's like 6 teams on bye. So yeah, he's definitely not droppable.
Yeah, no, I agree. But again, I have him in many leagues. I have a bunch of shares of him. I've been starting him now for at least a week, maybe 2 at this point, because again, it's not happening. And again, the biggest thing was, in the first couple of weeks, he had catches of, 45 yards and then 55 yards. And, his longest catch since then is 23 yards or something like that. So it's just not happening for Fitz. So I agree. It was unfortunate. I was kind of hoping to see something from his game. And because we didn't, he will still continue to slide down. Now, let's move on to, I don't know if it's Tag's favorite segment. It is certainly my favorite segment, and that is What's Your Problem, Man? And let's start it off. Look, we've done it before with this guy. We're going to do it again. And I know you're just going to be like, well, quarterback, once you get past the top 11, the top 12, it doesn't really matter. There's not that much of a difference. But what's your problem with Matthew Stafford, man? I mean, look, you have him 22nd. We are 11 spots apart on him. 25 completions on 32 attempts, 342 yards and 3 touchdowns in a great matchup, of course, against the Giants. But he's got at least 3 touchdown passes in 3 of his last 4 games. The Lions have absolutely no running game to speak of, which we'll get to when we get to that game. He's got games coming up against the Raiders and the Redskins. Your Bears aren't that scary anymore. Neither is Dallas on the upcoming schedule. I mean, how do you have him as like a borderline QB2 at this point?
Okay, so I want to be completely transparent here and say that I had Stafford there waiting for the Kerryon Johnson news, and I fully meant to go back and adjust his ranking. I just never did. So that's on me. That's me being fully transparent with you guys. But I did move him up in terms of like where my mind was at, where I wanted to move him up. And if you guys checked my rankings earlier today, I had him as the number 3 quarterback this week. So obviously I'm not completely down on Stafford. And when I went through, looked at the rankings, when I was like watching the games today, I was looking at my rankings. I'm like, oh no, I never adjusted Stafford. And I kind of figured this was going to come up. Matthew Stafford is now at QB 14 for me rest of the season.
All right, that is fair. And again, every once in a while, full transparency here, because Tags and I are obviously friendly outside of this podcast. Every once in a while, he will message me and say, by the way, don't message this player. That was an error. Don't talk about this player and what's your problem, man. That was an error. I promise I'm moving him. So I will have something all ready to go. But he did not do that with Stafford, so I was able to sort of get off him. All right, well, let's go in the other direction, Tags. Here's a guy who I think you're too high on. And again, I'm not going to kill you for this because he's certainly in the group of people who you're still starting every week. But what is your lack of a problem with Zach Ertz, Tags? I mean, you've got him 3rd overall, and, he had another game here, 4 targets, 2 catches, 20 yards. Dallas Goedert, who, has been involved, catches the touchdown pass. He's got just 2 catches in each of his last 2 games. He's got 1 touchdown on the season. His best game is 72 yards receiving. I fully understand the targets are absolutely there, so that's probably what your answer is going to be. But at some point, don't we need to see a little bit of a problem here? You still have him ranked as your 3rd tight end. If we were drafting today, Tags, honestly, I think he's more like 7th for me at this point. So go ahead and defend the Zach Ertz top 3 ranking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't argue with that. I have actually moved him down to tight end 6 after today's game. It seems like they are continually going to Dallas Goedert when they get in the red zone, and that's a real problem for Zach Ertz. I mean, the targets are still there. He has still, like, pending, Travis Kelce on during prime time. Zach Ertz, I mean, as long as Kelce doesn't get 8 targets, I think Ertz is still going to lead tight ends in targets coming out of week 8. So it's still, like, those are the vital signs, right? Like, we look for a top tier quarterback. He's got it. He plays for a team that generates a lot of pass attempts. He's got it. He receives plenty of targets. Again, he's leading tight ends in targets right now. He has totaled at least 54 yards in 6 of 8 games. So I do believe that Zach Ertz is somewhat of a buy low in fantasy football right now, because there's a lot of people out there that they invested a top 3 round pick on him, and they're feeling that, he has not lived up to that draft position. But the targets, I think the people that have someone like Zach Ertz don't understand what life is like without a tight end that you just kind of put in your lineup and you forget about. Not to say Ertz has been great. He hasn't. I know that. But I'm honest here. I go through every single week and I look at the rest of the season rankings at the tight end position. I'm like, I get outside 8 and I'm like, I don't care who you put there. Like, you could tell me that Dallas Goedert goes there and I'd be like, whatever. You could tell me that Gerald Everett, who I have there at 9, that he goes there, and I'd say probably not. I mean, it's so ugly at the tight end position. So I'm buying Zach Ertz, but I'm glad you brought him up though, because when Dallas Goedert scored his touchdown today, I don't know if there's something going on here with Ertz. I don't know if maybe that potentially the Eagles do make a deal and trade away Ertz, who's got an expiring contract coming up.
That's what I'm going to ask you, Tags. I mean, they have Goddard. Is there any chance that Ertz is going to be moved at this deadline?
I absolutely think there's a chance. They're going to be getting Deshaun Jackson back really soon. Dallas Goedert has proven to be competent, very competent in the role they need him to play, and they need cornerback help. If this team wants to go somewhere, they need help in the secondary. So, I mean, an Ertz trade makes plenty of sense, knowing what they have on their roster. Unfortunately, he might lose a lot of those vital signs that we look for if he does get traded, and that would be obviously problematic going to a team that he doesn't know the system, that he doesn't have any chemistry with the quarterback. That's the discerning part about Zach Ertz, but yeah.
Well, first of all, you have just completely taken the air out of this entire segment because both guys who I mentioned are like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm moving him.
You really do make sense. Based on where I was at last week with them, I really deserved the what's your problem, man. But I will also say that Zach Ertz, going back to my point, when Dallas Goedert scored that touchdown, all the teammates ran over there and congratulated him, and Zach Ertz just happened to be in that area, and he kind of just like tapped him and kind of like walked away. He was not excited about it, and it's like, I don't know if that's bitterness just because I know they're all competitors and all that, but at some point it's like, I want some of the production too, man. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know if that's the case, if there's something going on, but he clearly was not as happy as the rest of his teammates were.
Yeah, well, and in the end, one of the points I was trying to make is 100%. There is a top 8 at tight end, and Ertz is certainly still in there. And once you get past that, it does not matter. It's really those 8, and after that, you're just sort of streaming like you could have done with Jonnu Smith this week. But the top 8, and he's in there. But I just think, and it sounds like now you agree, he's more towards the back end of those must-start guys. So we're in agreement there, and we'll see what happens at this trade deadline because I do think that Ertz being moved is certainly a possibility. All right, before we get into the games here, I want to remind everyone that we are giving away a signed Julian Edelman autographed helmet over at fantasypros.com/contest. You can get all the details there. But to be entered, just leave a review for the show in Apple Podcasts or Stitcher and send in a screenshot of that review to contest@fantasypros.com. Now, that signed Julian Edelman helmet comes, of course, from our good friends over at Pristine Auction. You surely know about Pristine Auction by now. It's where you should be going whenever you are looking to buy sports memorabilia of any kind, or really anything at all. They have hundreds, even thousands sometimes, of auctions every single day where you can bid on a ton of great items. And because they have so many auctions, you can get absolutely amazing deals. I mean, yesterday I saw a signed Tyreek Hill football for $46.80 and a Mike Ditka signed jersey for $43. I mean, it's Mike Ditka. He could take on the old Giants team himself, you know? The signed Ditka jersey, the Hill signed football, every item at Pristine Auction is guaranteed from only the most trusted sources. It is free to register. It is free to bid. You only pay money when you win an item. So go to pristineauction.com. That's PRISTINE auction.com and use our promo code FANTASYPROS in the registration field when you sign up. You get a free $5, and that also lets them know that you heard about them from us, which is part of the reason we're able to do things like the Julian Edelman helmet giveaway. All right, Tags, let's move on to the games. Let's start with Thursday. Vikings 19, Redskins 9. Dalvin Cook does what he does, 171 total yards and a score. With Adam Thielen out, Stefon Diggs catches all 7 of his targets for 143 yards. Oddly enough, he does lose his 3rd fumble of the year, which is just a little annoying, but doesn't really make a difference in this one because he has such a big game. And Kirk Cousins, 23 of 26 for 285 yards. But he is held without a touchdown. So you knew this would be a big game for Diggs without Thielen in a soft matchup. But this is now 26 targets, 21 catches for 453 yards over his last 3 games. They've all been good matchups. The Eagles secondary is horrendous. Thielen left the game against the Lions early, as did Darius Slay. And then we've got the Redskins on Thursday. But Thielen's going to be back this week. But I asked it last week. I'm going to ask it again this week. Are we still selling high on Stefon Diggs, or are we just going to ride this out?
I would sell high. It was about 3 weeks ago where I told people, maybe 4 weeks ago, I told people I was like, buy low on Stefon Diggs and Adam Thielen, and then be prepared to sell them when this stretch of games ends because they play the Giants, the Eagles, the Lions, and then the Redskins. Kansas City has been a tougher defense than people realize in the secondary. Like ever since week 1, they've done really good against wide receivers. Dallas after that, who has limited wide receiver production. Denver after that, who has completely crushed all passing games. And then they have their bye week, so it's a tough stretch coming up for Stefon Diggs. So if you're looking to sell high, now is the time to do it. It's a team that they're the second heaviest run team in the NFL. Like they're going to run the ball. They don't want to throw the ball a whole lot. They're relying on a lot of efficiency. Again, catching all 7 targets. 7 targets is not like a massive number. There's a lot of wide receivers that we could find to get that. So yeah, I'm selling Stefon Diggs right now.
But to be clear, when you say selling him, you're selling him for like a borderline wide receiver 1, right? Or like a really high-end wide receiver 2. I mean, that's what you're talking about when you're saying selling high in that area, correct?
Oh yeah, that's the idea of selling high. Is just like trying to find someone that.
No, but that's what I want to make sure. I want to make it clear. Yeah. We're not talking.
Yeah, no, Dan. It's a good question though, because there's a lot of people that like legitimately like, oh, you can't sell player. Like people know what you're trying to do. Those are people that like legitimately play in leagues where there's no trading, because otherwise you have to take shots on people. Like I prefer to win trades. So that's why I don't make, if you're in like a highly competitive league, it's not very often that you see like massive trades made because people know exactly what they're trying to do. But in a majority of public leagues, you sell high on guys like Stefon Diggs who've had like a month straight of good production. And it's like, okay, well, this is the real thing. We're going to get to it in a little bit, but there's a player on the Eagles that is an extreme sell high right now just because of what people do in fantasy leagues. So Stefon Diggs, yes, the idea is always to sell high on those games is to buy low. Some people are like, you can't buy DeAndre Hopkins low. You can't do that. Well, you can buy him for lower than his stock was a couple weeks ago. Yeah, you could have. So it's the idea of selling Stefon Diggs for the high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 price tag. Like if somebody wants to give you Allen Robinson for Stefon Diggs, I would probably take Allen Robinson.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I have Robinson ranked at. That's just what I want to make sure, because people just hear sell high and they hear sell. And I don't like that. I want to make that clear where he is. On the other side of the ball, Case Keenum looks okay until he gets knocked out with a concussion, after which Dwayne Haskins just looks absolutely dreadful. Terry McLaurin, 4 for 39. Keenum is the starter if healthy. They've already come out and said that. And I assume that you would agree with me that when Keenum is the starter, McLaurin is essentially roughly a wide receiver 2 borderline. But if Haskins is the starter, then McLaurin is a guy who you cannot start under any circumstances. Is that fair?
Oh, dude.
You can. I mean, he's not ready whatsoever, right? I mean, it's just going to...
No, McLaurin was supposed to be the guy that didn't lose much value when he came in because they played in college together. But man, Haskins just looked lost.
No, he looks lost. McLaurin was wide open for that, nice gain there, and he just threw it. He just has no idea what's going on. So, I mean, look, again, everybody knows he's not ready. So they're going to stick with Keenum as long as they possibly can. And again, they have the extra time for Keenum to recover from the concussion. But, for fantasy owners' sake, if you own McLaurin, hope for Keenum to stay out there. On the ground game, really nice game from Adrian Peterson here, 14 for 76, plus 27 through the air, even though he was questionable with a high ankle sprain. Does this move the needle for you at all on Adrian Peterson going forward?
Not really. They're playing against Buffalo next week, and I know Buffalo just allowed it like quite a bit to the Eagles running backs, but then it's their bye week, and I don't know. I mean, under Bill Callahan, they clearly want to run the ball a lot more, but we have Darius Geis, who's I think he's able to come back after their bye week. I don't know if he's going to be ready to do that. Chris Thompson might be ready to come back at that point, so we could see more of a split workload. I don't know. With bye weeks here, I guess Peterson has some sort of value under this, new interim head coach that wants to run the ball, 60% of the time. But I don't know. It's the reason that I can talk myself into it is because Buffalo isn't going to like blow them out, most likely, because Buffalo just doesn't throw up points on the board, like, 50 points on the board. The Jets after their bye week. So it's like, I could see it, I guess, but I'm not excited about him.
We both had him at 43rd, okay? And every time I give our rankings, it's half PPR because that's where we're at right now. 43rd. I mean, I don't know. I'll probably have him like 40th or 39th or something like that. He's not a guy who you're going to want to start most weeks, but he is a guy who you roster because I do think, again, with bye weeks coming, even in tough matchups, this was a tough matchup. And he ran hard, and I think that he can get it done that way. But in terms of, wow, this guy could actually be a guy who I could start every week and feel okay about, no, I don't think so. We're not getting there. Let's move on to today's game. Seahawks 27, Falcons 20. The Seahawks led 24-0 at the half before they took their foot off the gas here a bit. Russell Wilson just 182 yards passing. He does find the end zone twice. Chris Carson and Rashad Penny combined for 28 carries for 145 yards. Carson finds the end zone. There are a ton of trade rumors going on right now surrounding Penny, so be mindful of that if you are a Penny owner. Tyler Lockett, uber efficient as always. All 6 of his targets. But DK Metcalf catches both of Russell Wilson's touchdown passes, although he totals only 13 yards. Yardage is never going to be Metcalf's thing. He hasn't topped 69 yards since week 1, but with no Will Dissly anymore, he's the big-time red zone threat. Does this game matter to you at all, or is this just taking advantage of a good matchup and finding the end zone? There
was plenty of room for like positive regression for DK Metcalf, so it's like we were waiting for the game where he could have 2 touchdowns, and this was one that kind of just stood out. And like where the Falcons had been beat, it was where DK Metcalf was getting a lot of his production. The weird part is that the production he got here was not even due to that. The 2 touchdowns he had in this game were both like because the Falcons weren't ready, essentially. The one play, they were moving around on defense, and Russell Wilson just decided to snap the ball. DK Metcalf, on both touchdowns, actually, he was just uncovered. Like, they just didn't cover him. So it was really odd, but that's going to happen when you play with Russell Wilson. You're going to catch touchdowns from time to time. He was due for touchdowns with the yardage he'd been putting up. So it's good to see some of that regression kick in. The question is like, are we going to continue to deal with these Russell Wilson 20 to 25 passing attempt games? Because then you're going to rely on touchdowns for production. And if Tyler Lockett's getting most of those, most of the time, it's going to be difficult to come by.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, Metcalf's, when you have yardage like this, regardless of how good of a red zone threat you are, it's just not something that you really want to rely on week in and week out. And again, like you said, neither one of these were they were very short, I think 2 and 4 yards or something like that. And again, he was wide open on both. It was more just Russell Wilson. So yeah, this game does not get me exciting. And, you take it, of course, you're excited. You started Metcalf 2 touchdowns, but it was kind of disappointing. Just, 13 yards or whatever he had, just really not. I was hoping to see a little more. Again, they didn't need to throw that much because they had the game so in hand. But it became a little bit of a game at the end because Matt Schaub threw for 460 yards and a touchdown. He does throw a pick in relief of Matt Ryan. Julio Jones, 10 catches for 152 yards. Really nice to see. Calvin Ridley, 4 for 70 plus a 2-point conversion. He was evaluated for a concussion right in the middle of the game, but he did come back. Austin Hooper, he is just a top, 4 tight end, maybe at worst, 6 for 65 plus a score. Let's talk about Devonta Freeman for a second. This is kind of the script we have seen now. 13 for 39 on the ground, plus a costly fumble, but 8 catches and 63 yards through the air. The 39 rushing yards and the 3 yards per carry that he averaged today were the third best marks of his season. But you're still willing to pretty much throw all that out because of his involvement in the passing game and continue to value him as an RB2 in half PPR leagues. Is that right, Tags?
Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, this team is going to score points. I mean, obviously with Schaub under center, it's going to be a little bit lesser. But, I mean, he was willing to target Freeman 8 times. It helped that Ito Smith was out for this game and that Brian Hill is just not involved in the passing game. But it's weird because like Devonta Freeman is someone I did not like when we started the offseason. Like I continually talked about the fact that Dirk Cutter just sucks when it comes to like producing a run game. He just doesn't do it. Going back to Tampa, and like now it's happening to Freeman again. Freeman struggled, by the way. His rookie year was under Dirk Cutter, and he was terrible. One of the least efficient running backs in football, and it's kind of returned to that. So whatever it is in Dirk Cutter's scheme, it just doesn't work with Devonta Freeman. It doesn't help that their offensive line has been banged up throughout the year, but. Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, anytime you get a running back he got 21 touches today, but usually he's like in a 15 touch role in a high scoring offense. That always has its appeal. Going back real quick to the Seahawks side of the ball, if you're in a 12 team league and you're like, man, I just keep searching for that tight end and I keep missing, and if you're looking for a tight end to just grab off the waiver wire to hopefully see if you strike something, Jacob Hollister is interesting. I know he only had 2 targets in this game, but he's basically playing in a full-time role as a tight end for Russell Wilson. He had 6 targets last week in a game that Wilson threw a little bit more. I just want to see what happens when these two start to develop chemistry, where it's like tying yourself to a tight end that's with Russell Wilson is never a bad thing. He's available in 99% of leagues, so it's just kind of like if you have room on your bench for a guy that let's just see what happens. He's a guy that I'm going to keep my tabs on.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big game last week, and it's clearly him, not Luke Wilson, although Luke Wilson did catch 1 catch for 7 yards. But yeah, he's not a bad guy, especially for deeper leagues or leagues that award points, additional points, bonus points for tight ends. Somebody to keep on your radar there. That's certainly a fair point to make. Let's move on to the next game. Colts 15, Broncos 13. Kudos to Ian Eagle for the Karate Kid sweep the leg reference on Adam Vinatieri's game-winning 51-yard field goal. This is a pretty standard Broncos game. They largely control the game only to blow it at the very end, and it's a pretty unexciting day all around for the offenses. For the Colts, just when we talked up Jacoby Brissett, he throws for 202 yards. He runs for 34, but he's held out of the end zone. T.Y. Hilton just 2 catches on 6 targets for 54 yards. Marlon Mack, you mentioned him earlier, 19 for 76 on the ground, plus a touchdown. I don't know, Tags, doesn't feel like there's really much to take away here from the Colts. Do you see anything?
No, outside of the fact that Jacoby Brissett had a bad game, and it should have been expected somewhat. Denver, I mentioned coming into this game, through 7 games, they had allowed just 6 passing touchdowns. It's been a tough matchup. Like Vic Fangio, at the beginning beginning of the year, this team wasn't generating any pressure, and it's what kind of like molded into people's brains thinking that this defense doesn't generate pressure. They're not very good. They've been really good, actually. A team, not a team that you want to target in fantasy matchups, maybe on the ground a little bit. And I thought Marlon Mack should have had a big day. So nothing too crazy here. Obviously, seeing Jack Doyle out target Eric Ebron is always frustrating because it's like every other week it just varies with these two, and it's like impossible to keep up with. But they're both in that fringe, high end tight end 2 range just because the tight end position is so ugly. But you hit it on the head about the Broncos, man. This is just a classic Broncos game.
They're a better team than their record suggests. They just do not know how to close off. And it's going to be interesting here, Tags. I mean, a lot of their pieces, especially on the defensive side, could get going here. I mean, I don't know what necessarily we expect to see, but their defense may be, something that we need to reevaluate when we're looking at the offenses when you're going against them, depending on what happens after the trade deadline.
Chris Harris Jr. is probably going to go.
100%, and that's going to make a huge difference when you're evaluating opposing wide receivers. Now, on offense, it's a little disappointing here without Emmanuel Sanders. First game for Courtland Sutton. He does have 3 for 72, but just 5 targets, considering Flacco had 32 pass attempts. Certainly you want to see a little more. As usual, Phillip LIndsay and Royce Freeman, pretty much an even split on the ground. Freeman does find the end zone, but Freeman, who's usually the one who's more involved in the passing game, just 1 catch for 5 yards, while LIndsay sees 5 targets, catches them all for 17 yards. You and I were nearly identical in our rankings of LIndsay and Freeman in half PPR leagues for rest of season coming into this game. LIndsay was 21st for both of us. Freeman was 30th for you, 31st for me. Is it fair to say that everything is status quo with the Broncos running game and the offense generally here? Did you have any changes from this game?
I moved LIndsay down 2 spots. I moved Freeman up 2 spots. I'm just closing the gap a little bit. I have LIndsay at 23, Freeman at 28, because I still think that LIndsay's the leader, but that gap is shrinking a little bit. It's really tough to predict this backfield, though, because like Freeman has been running more routes, he's been getting more targets, and then all of a sudden a game like today happens and it's like, well, LIndsay, more than doubles the targets for Freeman. What the heck happened? And then Freeman gets the goal line carry. So what happened here? Unfortunately, it's going to be difficult to project if they don't remain status quo with the way that they use these guys in the passing game. It's going to be difficult to project them. So unfortunately, both are going to be ranked in like RB3 territory most weeks, maybe low end 2. I think that's as high as I think you're willing to go on either of them.
Yeah, I had this game on one of my screens while I was watching, so I may have missed it, but this did not strike me, because I think fantasy owners are going to look and say, hey, Freeman's got the touchdown now in back-to-back games. Is he now the goal line back? I don't think so at all. I think it's legitimately whoever's kind of up in the rotation at that point. I don't think it's like, oh, we're within the 5. Let's now bring in Freeman, because LIndsay has actually been running well when you're at the goal line. I know Freeman kind of has the bigger back, looks more like the prototypical goal line back. The fact that he scored in the last 2 games and he got that carry, I think today was at the 4-yard line, and he brought it in really easily. I don't really think that this is a Royce Freeman is now your goal line back. I just want to make that clear. It might be, but from what I was watching, again, I had a bunch of screens up. It didn't seem like that was the case,
I don't think that's the case either. So yeah, LIndsay, I pulled it up without today's game included. LIndsay had inside the 5. LIndsay had 7 carries. He scored 4 touchdowns on those, so he's been awesome. And Royce Freeman only had 2 of those carries, converted 1 of them coming into this game. So no, it doesn't seem like LIndsay should have lost that job or did lose this job. You're probably right about the rotation.
Yeah, no, I think that's really just what it is. Again, both these guys, I've owned Freeman in a bunch of leagues just because if for no other reason than he was like a high-end handcuff, even if you didn't think that he was going to have independent value. But he's a guy who you can start every week in a pinch if you're there sort of in your flex spot. So both these guys, they cut into each other's value if there was only one of them, although I don't think that there would ever be one Broncos running back. I think you'd certainly see somebody else get into the mix if one of them got injured. Before we keep going, I'm really, really excited to tell you about our next sponsor, Away. Now, back when my wife and I were first dating and we were taking a vacation, we both needed new luggage, and she picked out this really, really nice suitcase. And I thought, why do I need a nice suitcase? Just give me that big, giant black one over there that's big enough to hold my giant clown shoes, and I will be happy. And when I take a carry-on, it's my old gym bag because I refuse to exercise now, and I have to get some use out of it. And my wife and my in-laws and the old lady who sat next to me on my flight the last time I went to Tennessee, they all think I'm a weirdo because I have this beaten-down old luggage that really should be hidden from public view. But that all ends this week because by the time we're doing this podcast next Sunday night, I'm going to have my new suitcase from Away, which I will be using when my family and I escape the New England winter to Grand Cayman in February. Seriously, It sells Away short to describe them as making just suitcases because they really make more like mini traveling butlers, essentially. Away makes suitcases that are affordable, high quality, and charge your phone. You can get it in a variety of colors and 4 sizes: the carry-on, the bigger carry-on, the medium, or the large. The carry-on bags have 2 USB ports and a high-capacity battery. And when you are traveling with 2 kids, when the remaining charge on their iPad batteries could be the difference between life and death, that is a life-changing development. It is ultra durable and yet lightweight. It's got 4 360-degree spinner wheels that won't get stuck or break. It's got a combination lock built in. There's free shipping, and it comes with a lifetime warranty. Tags, you just got your Away bag. Please explain to people that I am not overselling this.
You are not overselling it. As a matter of fact, so I have a 16-year-old daughter, and it's hard to impress 16-year-old girls. She had 2 friends spend the night this weekend, and it came in the mail actually on Friday. And they walked in, and my wife goes, "Look at this," and they were all like, "Oh, a suitcase and it has USBs on it," and like do you have to plug it in? Does it have to be plugged in? And then how does that work? And it's got a chargeable pack that literally just pulls out. You plug it in before you go, and you put it in there, and it charges whatever you want. It is amazing. My wife was actually mad because I always order something from our sponsors just to test it out, and like so I can actually give a word on it. And this is one where my wife was really mad about me ordering just one, and she says that we are not going on a trip until I order her one. So no, you are definitely not overselling it. It is fantastic.
I mean, Tags messaged me after he got the bag, and he was like completely freaking out. It was actually fun to watch. So I'm now just sitting here tapping my fingers, waiting for it to come because, like Tags, I wanted to be able to try out everything that we get from our sponsors. So I'm really excited, and really my wife's excited because she doesn't have to look at my giant, crazy bag that I have. But right now, Away has a special offer just for listeners of the show for $20 off a suitcase. Go to awaytravel.com/fantasypros. Use promo code fantasypros at checkout. That's $20 off a suitcase by going to awaytravel.com/fantasypros. Promo code fantasypros. All right, Tags, let's move on here. Saints 31, Cardinals 9. Drew Brees returns and does not miss a beat, completing 34-43 pass attempts for 373 yards and 3 scores. Michael Thomas catches all 11 of his targets for 112 yards and a touchdown. With no Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray dominates again, 21 carries, 102 yards, and a score plus 9 catches on 12 targets for 55 yards and a score. There's a radio host, Tags, on New York Sports Talk Radio, you know I'm from New York, who doesn't actually ask any questions. He just sort of says things and says, "How about that?" and sends it to the guests to see if they want to say anything. So that's what this feels like to me. So, Tags, Drew Brees returned. Everyone looked great in the Saints again. How about that?
How about the fact that Michael Thomas is just stupid good, despite being like covered by Patrick Peterson a majority of the day, catching all 11 targets. I had someone in the live stream this morning ask me Michael Thomas or someone. I'm like, dude, you don't ever bench Michael Thomas. Like, I don't really care if there's 2 Jalen Ramseys covering him. You're just playing him. You just put him in your lineup and forget about it. But yeah, like ridiculous. Latavius Murray comes through again. He was another guy that I had as a top 10 running back. And Bobby and one of our guests this week were kind of like saying, really? Like top 10? Wow. Like, why are you so high? I'm like, because he's a running back playing for the Saints that's getting 20 touches a game. I mean, like with Alvin Kamara out, you just plug in Murray, you forget about it, and you play him. I actually am proud to tell someone I said to start him over Nick Chubb this week, and obviously that panned out. So yeah, I mean,
I love the involvement in the passing game, by the way. 9 catches, geez, 12 targets.
This is where, that's the thing is like, that's where Kamara's value went too. Kamara lost his like elite RB1 status, but with Brees back, this team will throw more. He targets the running backs often. Obviously, there's nothing to dislike here. And the one thing I would say is that if you grab Ted Ginn, and maybe you played him this week, he was one guy that it was a disappointing performance for sure. But over the course of the time that he's been with the Saints, when him and Brees are in the lineup, he's a wide receiver 3 or better roughly 50% of the time. And that's a good thing in bye weeks. So I wouldn't be quick to drop Ted Ginn.
Well, the only thing I will say on that is, Tags, after the bye, the Saints get the Falcons, the Bucks, then they get the Panthers, and then the Falcons again. So I think you need to move Michael Thomas out of your 3rd spot and into your number 1 spot for rest of the season.
Actually.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. That good? You should. I've had him there for 2 weeks. All right, let's move on to the Cardinals. Not quite as good of an offensive game there. David Johnson out for this game, and no repeat of the Chase Edmonds game from last week. He goes for just 8 yards on 7 carries, plus a couple of catches for 5 yards before leaving with an injured hamstring. This does not sound good for him to be able to play on Thursday against the 49ers, and I believe David Johnson has already either been ruled out or, Ian Rappaport has tweeted out that he's almost certainly going to miss this game. So I'm sure there will be plenty for you and Bobby to talk about on the Waiver Wire show with Zach Zenner or Alfred Morris. But let's talk about the passing game here. We already talked without Larry Fitzgerald. But Christian Kirk returns. He sees 11 targets, catching 8 of them for 79 yards. How do you feel? I mean, what do you think? Reliable wide receiver 3 going forward? Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that it's like, he's seen at least 8 targets in 4 of the 5 games he's played. He's totaled at least 6 catches in 3 of those games. So yeah, this offense didn't even have the volume that they typically would or are supposed to do or considered, whatever. Kyler Murray hasn't been good. And now that the volume has come down, people are starting to see that Kyler Murray hasn't been very good. So it's like, all of a sudden I don't know what happened to Kingsbury's offense where Kyler Murray's just not throwing the ball as much. But, I mean, they just didn't have the ball very much in this game. The Saints just literally, I didn't see the time of possession in this game, but I promise you, it felt like they had the ball forever. So, but Kyler Murray, when the volume is going to be limited for him, it's going to hurt the offense. But he only attempted 33 passes. Kirk saw 33% of them coming off a multi-week injury. He was out for almost a month. So yeah, Christian Kirk, when he's in the lineup, he actually sees more targets, and that's outside this game. Like, he sees more targets than Larry Fitzgerald when they're both in the lineup. So Kirk is, I would say that he's like a low-end wide receiver 3, knowing the inconsistencies of Kyler Murray. But yeah, in the wide receiver 3 conversation.
I have been disappointed in the passing game, especially here where you knew they weren't going to be able to run. You kind of expected them to go the air more. They're just, again, and their upcoming schedule tags. I mean, 2 of their next 3 weeks are against the 49ers. They do get the Bucs thrown in there, so that's good. Then they're bye, then the Rams and the Steelers. It's something where, I feel like it looked like, especially Murray from the QB standpoint, was on the verge of really developing into this, maybe top 6 guy or something like that. But it just hasn't looked as good in recent weeks. But as for Kirk, completely agree. And if we were reverse, what's your problem, man? I was way too low on Kirk coming into for my rest of season rankings, not for this week in particular, but for my rest of season rankings. So I will certainly correct that. I agree with you. He's in the wide receiver 3 range. I'm not sure exactly how high or low because I don't usually do him until Monday. But in the end, for me, he's definitely gotten there. Let's move on to your favorite game of the week. Chargers 17, Bears 16. Let's start with the Chargers here to ease you into it. Both running backs find the end zone. Gordon rushing 39 yards total plus the score. Eckler catches an 11-yard touchdown pass. Meanwhile, Keenan Allen, who was a game-time decision and expected to be limited, does suit up. He sees 10 targets, catches 7 of them, but he drops what would have been a 24-yard touchdown catch. Mike Williams, 69 yards. Hunter Henry, 47 yards. Other than the fact that they won, this felt like a pretty typical Chargers game. Disjointed offensively, bad offensive line. What do you want to take away here from the Chargers?
My biggest takeaway that I can give you is that Mike Williams is going to start losing targets really soon. If this offense starts to lose targets in any way, or if they add someone like a wide receiver that can give them some sort of value as the number 3 in that offense, Mike Williams should lose targets. Like, I've been watching him the last few weeks, and he's been getting a lot of targets, but he's been dropping a lot. Over the last 6 games, he's dropped 5 passes in that time frame, and that's not even counting the ones that he probably should have caught, but they're not going to count as drops because it was somewhat contested. He's supposed to be that receiver that wins those contested catches. He's that big body wide receiver that you pay to win those catches, and he's not doing it. And at some point, I think Phillip Rivers is going to just stop throwing him the ball. So, like, he was like a guy that I was really disappointed in watching this game because the Bears secondary is not as daunting as it used to be. It's really not.
So where are you moving out of curiosity? You had him 36 the rest of the season coming into this week.
Yeah, I moved him down. He is currently at, wide receiver 39.
Okay. All right. So it's not like a dramatic drop, but you're just concerned a little bit more about his long term. And that's fine. Look, the entire offense just looks terrible. And they should have lost this game had the Bears been able to kick a late field goal. And let's move on to there, because we do have a bright spot in David Montgomery. 27 carries. Matt Nagy said he was going to run the ball more. He did not lie. 27 carries, 135 yards on the ground, plus a score, plus 4 catches for 12 yards. There's a tough matchup with the Eagles on tap, but it's not the worst schedule going forward. Is this Montgomery's coming out party or just a great day?
It's a great day, and it's good to see. I mean, Mitch Trubisky, I know that people are going to see the parts of that game and the negative things, but there was a few competent throws he made. The play calling was terrible for the Bears in this game. Matt Nagy continued, every time that I see Cordarrelle Patterson come on the field, I cringe. I'm not even kidding. It's just really ugly. They're playing the Eagles next week. That's a brutal matchup for running backs. You legitimately do not want to play running backs in that matchup. So if you don't have David Montgomery, don't go and buy him now. I don't want to say that you should sell high if you own him. Understand that he's going to have a bad week next week. And if you don't own him, go and pay for him after that game, because I happen to think that Montgomery is going to be used a lot down the stretch because Tariq Cohen's not the answer. Mike Davis is not the guy. They know that they need to stick to the run. I just think the Bears are lost right now, that they just don't know what to do with Mitch Trubisky and the fact that he's struggling with confidence. That offensive line is not blocking very well, and Matt Nagy's play calling isn't very good.
Yeah, it's been a really disappointing season, and I'm not a Bears fan, as you know, so it's been tough for me to watch sort of on your behalf. I agree. I do think Montgomery is, by the end of the season, I think when all things are said and done, you're going to be starting him as an RB2, because I think the Bears are going to continue to try to push this running game. Again, he ran well, and it is a tough matchup going on, but he ran really well. So I think they're going to try to do what they can to do this, because Trubisky is obviously not capable of leading the offense. Not right now, not in this year. I will say that, Anthony Miller has been pretty impressive over recent weeks. He caught all 3 of his targets for 67 yards. He's now got 3 straight games with at least 52 yards. So in deeper leagues, I would keep my eye on that. Let's move on here to Rams 24, Bengals 10. This game is in London. I'm just going to say it. If you're going to do a game in London, make it a 9:30 a.m. game, please. I don't, there's no point, because it's just like any other game. I don't like it at all. Brandon Cooks leaves this game with a concussion. Look, they've got a bye week next week, but this is worrisome given that he just sustained a concussion a couple of weeks ago. So fantasy owners really need to monitor that. Cooper Kupp doesn't really need much help, though. 10 targets, 7 catches, 220 yards, and a touchdown. We both had him as a top 7 wide receiver going forward anyway, so not much to see here. But how about Robert Woods? Tags 2 for 36 on 2 targets. He's got 1 game with more than 100 yards, 2 games with more than 79 yards, 3 games with more than 50 yards, and that's it. If Cooks misses time, that's another story. But otherwise, should fantasy owners be concerned about Woods, or just keep rolling him out there as a wide receiver too?
I'm concerned with the entire offense, and it all comes back to Jared Goff. And if he's not good, then this entire offense is going to struggle. Like, this was a team that we could continually plug in 3 wide receivers in the team. And I remember people asking me, just saying, how can you have 3 wide receivers in the top 24? I'm like, well, because we're playing the odds and the fact that the Rams are continually putting up these points. And Jared Goff, yeah, he has 372 yards and 2 touchdowns. Guys, it's the Bengals. Like, Jared Goff is the best sell high in fantasy football. Like, he's terrible. Like, over his last 16 games, like dating back to last year, I think it was week 12. And then if you include the playoffs, over his last 16 games, that's a full NFL season. He has thrown 18 touchdowns. And with the options that he has, there's no excuse for that. His offensive line isn't very good. Their schedule is going to get tougher. They are going into a bye. There's a lot of things going on with here. So yes, I am worried about Robert Woods, but if Brandon Cooks is going to miss time, I'm not nearly as worried, because there's, the targets are already concentrated to the wide receiver position in this offense. Josh Reynolds sees 8 targets for whatever reason. Whatever. It is what it is. But my biggest takeaway here is, like, Todd Gurley, this is a game last year he would have crushed. Like, he would have absolutely demolished, and you would have been like, I can rely on him for 25 PPR points. But they're splitting the touches. Darrell Henderson ends up with more touches than Gurley does in this game. Ever since his quad injury, I know Gurley has scored 6 touchdowns in their last 4 games, but he's someone I would absolutely sell high if you can. If someone looks into it and they're like, oh, he's back to the old Gurley. No, he's not.
Wait, what? Let's talk about this very quickly, like we did with Diggs. What is sell high? Because you had him at 12th tags in your rest of your rankings. I had him at 17th. So for me, selling him at 12th would have been selling high. So, I mean, are you talking about trying to sell him for, like, what does sell high mean to you?
I would trade Gurley for Le'Veon Bell. Bell is like one of the better buy lows. Like, looking at his schedule is kind of ridiculous. His upcoming schedule, they're going to play against the Dolphins, the Giants, the Redskins, the Raiders, the Bengals, and then the Dolphins again. And by the way, that second Dolphins game is the first week of the fantasy playoffs. So yeah, I would flip Todd Gurley for Le'Veon Bell, try and buy low there. If you could sell Gurley for someone like Aaron Jones, I would do that.
No, I mean, I have those guys ahead of him as well, but I have a lot more ahead of him too. That's the one thing. I've been worried about this now for a little while. We've talked about it a couple times. You've kind of brushed it off a little bit, but it sounds like, again, you're coming there. This game in particular, again, he scores the touchdown, but the fact that he was out-touched by Henderson is really, really concerning. In a game where they were leading, they had it well in hand for pretty much the entire game. So it's certainly something concerning. On the other side of the ball, look, signs of life from Joe Mixon, 17 for 66 on the ground, plus 4 for 11, and a score through the air. Meanwhile, Andy Dalton throws for 329 yards. And if you had a Bengals pass catcher, you're probably not too sad right now. Alex Erickson leads the way with 6 catches for 97 yards. Tyler Eifert, 6 for 74. Tyler Boyd, 6 for 65, and Auden Tate 5 for 65 on 13 targets. As of now, it sounds like AJ Green and maybe Cordy Glenn are going to be back after the bye. Who do you want to own in the Bengals passing game, Tags? I mean, what do you want to say about this?
With AJ Green coming back, I mean, it's kind of hard to figure that out because Green's going to see double-digit targets every game like he should. Oh, man, it's rough. I mean, Auden Tate is going to be the one starting opposite him. They're going to have Tyler Boyd in the slot. I think they're all going to have some value because, again, this is kind of like the Rams offense where it's very wide receiver eccentric. Like they're using their wide receivers a whole lot. Joe Mixon is going to become more valuable just because it's like what happens when AJ Green comes in the field? It changes the way a defense kind of operates. But I don't know. Someone gave me crap this week, actually, about having Joe Mixon ranked as I had him as my number 28 running back, I think it was. And he said Joe Mixon 28 overall. I didn't even know what he was like it was like an LOL reference. And I was like, it's always bad when I don't know which way he's LOLing. You know what I mean? Like, is he saying that he doesn't belong like that high, or that I have him down at 29 or 28 or whatever it was that he's that low? Like, where are you at on Joe Mixon?
We're exactly at the same spot, man. We've had him at the exact same spot rest of season. I'll put it this way, and this will probably sum it up exactly. Now, it's a specific thing. It's a 3-receiver league. It's pretty deep. I'm doing well at running back. I turned down an offer of Joe Mixon for Robby Anderson before this week. Now, look, value-wise, I think Joe Mixon still in a vacuum is more valuable than Robby Anderson, although, again, the Jets' schedule lightens up, although we'll talk about whether or not we still want to take advantage of that from the receivers, and Anderson in particular may get traded, but Joe Mixon is not a guy I want at all. I mean, and I get it. I like the talent, but it's just not a good situation. So, yeah, LOL, are you saying we're too high? Are you saying we're too low? When you don't even know. I agree. No, it's something like that. But, at least it's nice to see him get some production here. But, again, with the Bengals, it's largely a question mark. Well, look, if you've had Joe Mixon in your lineup all year long, you probably haven't had a very good year, but you would have had a good Sunday if you had put Tevin Coleman in your FanDuel lineup. Look, I play a ton of seasonal leagues, so does Tags, but no matter how many we have, there's just nothing better than playing on FanDuel. We can get the guys who we feel really strongly about that week, even if we don't have any shares of them in seasonal leagues. We don't need to worry about injuries or busts or anything like that. It's a new team each week with none of the hassles of season-long fantasy. So maybe you don't have a piece of anyone in the Monday night game in your seasonal leagues. Well, have a reason to watch what will otherwise be an absolutely terrible game between the Steelers and the Dolphins and play a little FanDuel. I'm going to have a whole lot of Deontay Johnson, who's shown a nice connection with Mason Rudolph so far, and probably some Devontae Parker despite the tough matchup, as he's found the end zone in 3 straight games. This season, there are more ways to win than ever because FanDuel has more ways to win cash prizes and once-in-a-lifetime experiences during every single game, every single week. And now FanDuel is offering a great promotion to new users. You can get $20 in site credits when you deposit $20 or more. To get this great offer, just go to FanDuel.com/fantasypros or download the FanDuel app. That's FanDuel.com/fantasypros. Jaguars 29, Jets 15. Leonard Fournette has basically the most quintessential Leonard Fournette game of all time, 19 for 76 on the ground, but 66 of those yards come on a single run right out of the gate. But he also had 7 catches for 60 yards, and he scores a touchdown that is wiped out by a ruling that his forward progress had stopped. There will eventually be touchdowns for Leonard Fournette. Take the volume and the yards and be happy with it. Meanwhile, Minshew Magic returns here with 3 touchdown passes, one to Chris Conley, who goes for 103 yards, one to DJ Chark, who goes for 79 yards, and one to Keelan Cole, who goes for 12 yards. If you're wondering why D.D. Westbrook posted a 0, yes, he was active, but he injured his shoulder, I believe, on a punt return, and he was ruled out at halftime. Marquise Lee also left injured. Chark is a low-end wide receiver, too. Fournette's a borderline top 5 running back in half PPR leagues. Do you agree with all that? And is there anything else to add from the Jags?
I would agree. Leonard Fournette is someone that kind of throughout his career, he hasn't been very good on the goal line, which is really weird for a big dude like him. But he's second in the league in rushing right now with 791 yards on the ground. He has 263 yards through the air. That's over 1,000 yards. And he has 1 touchdown. Like, how do you, think about it. Covering 1,000 yards in the football field, or actually it's like 1,052 yards is what he has, and not scoring more than 1 touchdown. It blows my mind. It's kind of like one of those things where people that are depending on regression, like to the mean, you're like Fournette, like looking at it right now, like there's no one else with more than like 500 total yards that doesn't have at least 2 touchdowns. So it's just like to know that he has over 1,000, it's madness. And there's probably going to be like a breakout somewhere where it's just like he's gonna have a 3 touchdown game. I kind of thought it was supposed to be against the Jets this week, but It just hasn't happened, man. And
it's gonna happen. Even if it doesn't, who cares? Not who cares, but this volume is awesome. He's got such a high floor at this point, if for no other reason than the involvement in the passing game. That just gives you such a level of comfort. But I agree. It's frustrating because he could be a monster. He could be an absolute crazy person. But in the end, he's still essentially what, top 6, top 5, top 6 for you, somewhere there.
I have him as the RB6 right now, yeah.
Yes, I think I do too. So, I get it, Fournette owners, and I'm, one of them, but, chill out. It'll come. It'll be all right. As for the Jets, it's pretty much all bad here, Tags. Darnold, 218 yards and 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks. He's sacked 8 times, and he sprains his thumb. I don't know how serious it is. We're getting into that perfect part of the schedule. We talked about Le'Veon Bell. He was totally shut down here, just 35 total yards, but I agree. He is a prime buy low candidate. Robby Anderson, 43 yards receiving. Jamison Crowder, 24 yards receiving. Now, if you assume Darnold isn't badly hurt, put aside Bell, because I think that Bell is a guy who's probably going to be able to succeed really no matter what. But are you still buying low on the Jets pass catchers? Anderson, of course, has all the trade rumors, so he unfortunately might be shipped out of town. If he's not, and if Darnold's healthy, you still think that forget about Bell, but Anderson and Crowder, even Demaryius Thomas, maybe Chris Herndon, perhaps when he comes back, that they are going to be able to take advantage of that schedule?
I am not buying anybody from this pass catching core. Like if Demaryius Thomas is available on waivers, he was someone that you could have grabbed this weekend because they do have a date with Miami next week. And if Robby Anderson's gone, Demaryius Thomas is probably going to see 8 targets against the Dolphins, which is always, it's a good time. But Robby Anderson, it seems like he's going to go. And one of them, I don't know how many picks there were that were targeting Robby Anderson, but I saw the one was a pick. The dude just doesn't care. And if you're on Gase's bad side, you're going to go, and he's going to go. I truly believe that he is going to be dealt. If he's not, it would be a surprise to me. But no, I don't want to attach myself to this offense if I can help it. Le'Veon Bell's one just because I think he's a true workhorse that you can get. He'd be the only one that I think that I'm going to try actively seek out and see what it would take to get him, because Le'Veon Bell, again, coming off this game, they're probably looking to get rid of him after coming off this game and the game against New England the week before.
Yeah, I think if Anderson stays, I'd probably hang with him and roll with him, because I really think that the offensive line is just in such shambles that if you can get pressure on Darnold, it's just a disaster. But none of the teams coming up really has any sort of pass rush, so I think he would be okay. Hopefully Adam Gase decides that he has a problem with himself, so he can also trade himself.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I know, it's all right. Look, things could be worse. You could be a Mets fan and a Knicks fan as well, or the Bears. All right, let's move on here. Lions 31, Giants 26. We already talked about Stafford. Part of the reason he had a big day was Kenny Golladay, who went for 6 catches, 123 yards, and 2 scores. For all the people killing you about Marvin Jones, he goes for just 4 catches for 22 yards. Danny Amendola, another nice game here, catches all 8 of his targets for 95 yards. But let's talk about the running game, shall we? Tre Carson, 12 for 34 on the ground. Ty Johnson, 7 for 25. Paul Perkins is alive and well, 3 for 4 on the ground, about what he used to do with the Giants. And J.D. McKissick, 1 carry for a -1 yard. True or false, Tags? Fantasy owners will not be able to start any running back on the Lions at any point, regardless of bye weeks, for the remainder of the season.
Based on what we saw today, I think it's very possible that they actually trade for a running back. I think they're a team that still believes they're in it at 3-3-1, and knowing that they put a 2016 undrafted free agent on the field he didn't play the most snaps, but he had the most touches. Tells me everything I need to know. They don't believe in anybody on that roster. I think it's very possible. Maybe they make a move for Melvin Gordon. Maybe they sign someone like Jay Ajayi. I don't believe they're done.
Okay, that's fair. As they do not make a move, you're not starting any of these guys ever. Giants, moving on. Daniel Jones sets all kinds of career highs here. 28 completions, 41 attempts, 4 touchdown passes, all career highs. He also goes for 311 yards, just short of his career high. Saquon Barkley, 143 total yards on the score. Evan Ingram finds the end zone. Golden Tate, 10 targets, 8 catches, 85 yards. So Tate's been pretty reliable the past 3 games. At least 9 targets, at least 6 catches, and at least 80 yards in each of them. It sounds like Sterling Shepard may come back next week against the Cowboys. Tate's probably going to stay in the slot, right? We saw that in the first game that he came. They moved Shepard out of there. And does Shepard, though, does his impending return dim your outlook on Tate at all, or do you think Tate's production is pretty locked in considering he's out of that slot position?
It lowers his target floor and ceiling for sure, because Shepard is a guy that he was getting targets from Daniel Jones and he would continue to get targets. But Shepard has struggled with production on the perimeter, and it's one of those reasons that I was selling Sterling Shepard before he even had to miss more time with this concussion. And he's someone that we don't even know if he's going to return, just because they're saying that these concussion symptoms, he's had 2 concussions this year. It's been lingering symptoms, and they expected to be without him for a while. And I know it's been a couple weeks already, but I don't think it's any guarantee he's coming back soon. But I will say that those Darius Slayton touchdowns today, they were big boy touchdowns, man. Like he looked like a real NFL wide receiver on those touchdowns. Those were the only passes he caught, but I mean, that's all he needed to get fantasy production. So it definitely helped that Darius Slay was out for the Lions. I don't want to, minimalize that, because he's their best cornerback, and with him out, they're forced to play a backup, essentially. But one of the big surprises from this game was Danny Amendola. Amendola, this is his 3rd game this year where he's had at least 95 yards receiving. When he's involved, he's very involved. And if the run game is not going to be heavily utilized, if they're not going to stick with one of these running backs and they're going to go to throw the ball a little bit more, we could see him play that Golden Tate role that generated so many targets over the last few seasons. He could have value, especially through the bye weeks.
All right, that's an interesting point. And again, he does this thing where he either has huge games or he's kind of completely non-existent. But it does look like if the running game is struggling, that's really where he's going to be able to make his mark. So assuming they don't trade for a running back, that's not a bad point to look at him in deeper leagues. Let's move on here to Titans 27, Bucks 23. Ryan Tannehill, you talked about him this week. Throws for just 193 yards, but 3 touchdown passes. Derrick Henry, 16 for 75 on the ground against the tough Bucks run defense. Jonnu Smith, really the only pass catcher who does anything here, with 6 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown, the perfect streaming option. A.J. Brown does catch a touchdown pass, but Corey Davis does not. 6 targets, 2 catches, 9 yards. Tags, is there any reason, you got excited last week, I know you did, is there any reason for fantasy owners to still own Corey Davis?
That's me throwing my hands up in the air and saying I have no idea what to do. I mean, he had 6 targets, which led the wide receivers, but oh man,
the answer is no. Tags. It's no. I get it. I want to believe too. We've debated this since last year, man. I get it. He's talented. I don't know. I mean, I want to find a reason, but I can't at this point. I can't imagine starting Corey Davis, because if it's not going to happen here, Tags, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, today was the day where I felt comfortable and it backfired, and I'm sad.
All right, I'm going to put words in your mouth and you saying you can go ahead and move on from Corey Davis. Let's move on to the Bucs. Jameis Winston throws the ball quite a bit. He turns the ball over 4 times. He does throw for 301 yards, runs for 53 more, throws 2 touchdown passes. Mike Evans goes crazy. 12 targets, 11 catches, 198 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Everyone else is held in check. Chris Godwin just 43 yards. Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber split the carries almost equally. So much for our hopeful theory that perhaps they'd figure it out over the bye week. Anything you want to talk about here on the Bucs side?
No, if you want to move on from Ronald Jones, you could do that. Obviously, it wasn't a good matchup against Tennessee, but to know that they're still splitting carries, to know that Ogunbowale is still involved is beyond stupid. Jameis Winston continues to be a turnover machine. This was a tough matchup against the Titans. We knew that running the ball would be difficult for them, but they were missing Adoree Jackson in the secondary, which is he's been a guy that some viewed as a bust. I didn't consider him a bust. I just think that he was miscast, and he was playing really good this year, but he was out, allowing Mike Evans to kind of go nuts on that secondary. And Jameis Winston wasn't even great in this game. He completed under 50% of his passes. He kind of threw the ball up to Mike Evans a few times, and Evans just kind of made a play on the ball because he's 6'5" and, a big dude. Jameis Winston is a guy that, I don't want to tell people that they should sell, because it's I don't think you're going to get anything in return, but it's really difficult to rely on him. In the fantasy playoffs, you want stability in your lineup, and I think that Jameis Winston is the exact opposite of stability.
I think if you own Jameis Winston, you leave him in there and you close your eyes, because it's horrible to watch. But in the end, he comes with fantasy production so long as he can keep his job. Blaine Gabbert, I think, is coming back in a couple of weeks, and you really never know. Eagles 31, Bills 13. This game was really windy, so you want to sort of take anything with the passing game, or lack thereof, with a little bit of a grain of salt. So let's go to the running game here for the Eagles. Jordan Howard, 23 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Miles Sanders, 3 carries for 74 yards and a touchdown, plus 3 catches for 44 yards through the air. He does leave with a shoulder injury. He says he's fine, but he will get an MRI tomorrow. Let's assume Miles Sanders is fine. You can only own one back in the Eagles' backfield for the rest of the season. You can't switch them. You can't do matchup. You can't own Howard now and Sanders later when the playoffs come. Who are you owning in that backfield?
Oh, it probably would have been Miles Sanders, but he was actually the one I was going to say that he was almost my biggest loser of the day. This is the second time. I know that you're talking about the shoulder injury, but they're not using him in a big role. They're just not. And I think it's now 21 touches over the last 3 games. So that's with their.
I mean, Howard's effective. That's the thing. I mean, he's getting it done. Yeah.
The reason that I wanted to say Sanders is because the defense has been so bad and they're involved in a lot of shootouts and they end up throwing the ball a lot more. That's the reason I would say Sanders. But man, he's one of the biggest losers because the thing is, you can sell high on him if people are the ones that in your fantasy league. What happens is when you send a trade, some diehards, like if you're in a public league or like a friends league where they don't watch football like we do all the time. And if they'll go look at Miles Sanders and see, wow, 2 of the last 3 games he's had 18 or more PPR points, and you're like, yeah, I'm willing to sell whatever, blah blah. You might be able to sell high on him because again, they're going to look at those scores and they're going to see that he's delivered in recent. And but knowing that he's played fewer than 20 snaps in 2 of the last 3 games is very concerning.
All right, on the other side of the ball with the Bills, look, tough day all around, but no one with more than 54 yards receiving with all that wind. Cole Beasley does catch a touchdown pass, as does Devin Singletary, who winds up with 49 total yards and a touchdown. Real quick, Tags, any hope for Devin Singletary going forward as a guy who you can put in your lineup quasi-reliably?
I don't think the upside is there. I mean, looking through the top 5 performances out of Bills running backs this year have ranged, the top 5 have ranged from 10.9 to 16.9 PPR points. I don't think that's enough upside to justify the risk you're taking when you put him in your lineup. So, I mean, during bye weeks, I guess you could probably pop him in there a few times, but it's not great.
Yep, I completely agree. Let's move on to the afternoon games. 49ers 51, Panthers 13. We really talked about this one. It was all Tevin Coleman. He had 4 touchdowns overall. Deebo Samuel also gets a rushing touchdown. Emmanuel Sanders finds the end zone, but really the 49ers just had this completely locked up right from the get-go. On the other side of the ball, there's really nothing good, particularly from Kyle Allen. Only Christian McCaffrey, who rumbles for 117 yards on the ground. Plus a score. He adds 38 through the air. No pass catcher goes for more than 46 yards. So I guess the real question is, Tags, has Cam Newton's foot miraculously healed enough for him to be back next week? I mean, is that what's going to happen? Really? Because they've been waiting, right? Kyle Allen's just been managing the game. You've been talking a lot, and kudos to you, about how Kyle Allen's not that good and how really, it's just, there is a controversy, but you have the game now. You have the excuse. Is Cam Newton going to come back miraculously or what?
I think it's very possible that he does. I mean, Kyle Allen, these were the first interceptions of his career, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like all of a sudden and it comes in bunches, right? They were all over him. Nick Bosa had a crazy game. I think it was 3 or 4 sacks that he racked up in that game. It was just kind of crazy how fast, continuously he was getting into the backfield. Yeah, it was just an ugly game for Carolina. There's not too much to take from here outside of the fact that Christian McCaffrey's a stud, and he was pulled in the middle of the 4th quarter basically because the game was well out of reach, which is probably smart on their part. It was a little bit in my selfish ways. I wanted him to stay on the field for my DFS lineups because it would have helped a little bit, but it is what it is. But on the other side, Dante Pettis is a guy that I would confidently drop. The snaps were something that you can get excited about and say, eventually it's going to add up to production, but this is a team that is even more run heavy than the Minnesota Vikings. And now that Emmanuel Sanders is there, George Kittle's there, he's clearly the number 3 option at best in the passing game. Move on.
All right, let's also move on ourselves to Texans 27, Raiders 24. Pretty good game here. Deshaun Watson throws for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Carlos Hyde, 19 for 83. He fumbles again. He doesn't lose it, but he fumbles, which is getting a little annoying. DeAndre Hopkins, 13 targets, 11 catches, and 109 yards. Darren Fells is actually the guy who gets into the end zone, catches all 6 of his targets for 58 yards. Kenny Stills, everybody was really excited. He disappoints, though. 5 targets, 3 catches, 22 yards. Any takeaways here from the Texans side?
Not really. I was surprised to see how much they struggled throughout the game. They turned it on late, scored 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter to win the game. But throughout the game, they kind of just struggled. Does anybody know what happened with Keke Coutee? I legitimately did not look at Twitter at all today. I didn't want any negative, literally in my brain today. I didn't want it. And so I didn't look at Twitter very much. But did something happen to Keke Coutee? Because he didn't see a single target as far as I see.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know. DeAndre Carter was far more involved. And And I saw him get a catch at the end, and I thought it was Coutee. So actually, I'm not sure on that. One of the downsides of doing this on Sunday night is that we don't have all the information. But yeah, he didn't get any snaps in the game. Is that what you're telling?
I am pulling it up right now to see. I'm not seeing any snaps. I don't know if it's just not logged yet, but I'm not seeing anything, which is really odd. I don't know what to make of this, to be honest with you, because Coutee, the matchup, yeah, I'm not seeing any snaps. I do see snaps for Hopkins, DeAndre Carter, and Kenny Stills. So I don't even know. Was Coutee inactive? Like, it's kind of nuts. But yeah, he obviously didn't play, which is obviously concerning because this was a matchup where he should have done well. But I know Deshaun Watson's final numbers look pretty good, but overall it was a weird game. Like, because the Raiders were winning this game like for the majority of it.
They were, yeah. They played well offensively. Derek Carr threw for 3 touchdowns, one to Tyrell Williams, who has caught a touchdown, I believe, in each game that he has played. Another one to Hunter Renfrow, a long catch and run for 65 yards. On that one, Darren Waller also finds the end zone. Josh Jacobs, 15 for 66 on the ground, not bad. He does catch 2 more passes, but they didn't go to him quite as much as you would have thought. Pretty devastating injury here on the Texans side. I believe J.J. Watt tore a pec muscle, so sounds like he's going to miss a lot of time. But anyway, look, the Raiders' offense is relatively competent. Any takeaways from it, or is this just, look, you start Tyrell Williams when he's there, you start Jacobs, you start Waller, and you can start Carr in a decent matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Tyrell Williams is someone that I had ranked in wide receiver 3 territory this week. I was a little concerned about him coming off the multi-week injury and like you're aggravating it. But yeah, Waller is someone you start every week. He saw 8 targets here. I know it didn't amount to much, and that's fine. But I want to say he had a touchdown that was called back due to a penalty too. So he actually had 2 touchdowns, but one that was called back. But as for Derek Carr, every single time that I think that I can trust him, and I'm like, oh yeah, you can stream him as a high-end QB2, low-end QB1. He has like a terrible game, and it's like people look at me like I have 3 heads, and I'm like, I should have known better. And that's why I Derek Carr in like my rest of season rankings, I have him at like QB 24 or something like that. I don't think that he's going to end the season as QB 24. I don't, because he has games like this where he looks solid in like, getting Tyrell Williams back, having Darren Waller out there, adding Josh Jacobs into the passing game a little bit like they have. There's reasons to get excited about it, but we've seen this story so many times with Derek Carr, and he's just too inconsistent to trust.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I had him as basically right there, a very low-end QB2. I agree. He looks good in a lot of games, but right when you think like, oh, this is going to work out for us, it does not. So I agree. There's not a game where you can really trust him, which is, if you are looking in that area, it's something that you're kind of hoping for. So let's move on to our last game here. Pats 27, Browns 13. A pretty bad rainstorm over there. So again, the Pats played it a little conservatively. Brady throws for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both of them go to Julian Edelman, who gets 8 catches for 78 yards. Sonny Michel, 21 for 74 on the ground. Kind of disappointing, considering with the Browns' run defense. No pass catchers really get going here. Dorsett, only 43 yards. James White catches 4 passes for 75 yards. Anything you want to take away here? I mean, Mohamed Sanu obviously just getting involved, so, only 23 yards on 2 catches. He does see 5 targets, but nothing really to get alarmed here. I'm sure he'll get more integrated as he knows the offense. Any takeaways here from the Patriots side of the ball?
No, it was a pretty messy game. Like, if you were able to watch this game, I watched pretty much the whole thing, and it was I mean, it was continuous rain throughout the entire game. The biggest question mark I walk away from is James White had to leave the game for a minute. He came back. Hopefully everything is okay there, because knowing that Rex Burkhead is back and available, it's going to cut into some of that work a little bit. Jarvis Landry also got hurt late in the game. I don't know what it was. I didn't see, again, we went to record this right as that happened, so I'm not sure if it was like a severe injury. They were talking about maybe a collarbone. Did you see anything on that?
No, I didn't. I mean, again, we're watching the game here. I also saw Mayfield look like he might have gotten a little banged up at the end. It's really tough. We were recording right as this game was sort of going to close, so we may have missed some, of course, with that. But of Landry, who had a decent game, which he kind of does, I feel like, against Belichick, right? Because they're just like, okay, fine, take your Landry, yards there in the where you can. But again, Odell Beckham Jr., 7 targets, 5 catches, 52 yards. He obviously drew Gilmore. Nick Chubb, 20 for 131 on the ground, but he loses 2 critical fumbles. You had mentioned a little bit, I think, or maybe we hadn't talked about it yet, about Kareem Hunt, obviously about to come back. I mean, he runs very well. The lost fumbles stink, but they were early, and he obviously was covering up later. Any other takeaways from the Browns side?
No, I don't think they're going to hold this against Chubb. He's not a guy that's been known for fumbling issues or anything like that. And again, this game, it was extremely messy. The weird thing, after the first fumble, it's like, did he have the second one? The second one was like he covered the ball up well, and then it was just weird the way it happened, but I think the weather had a lot to do with it. The Patriots player went and like punched it out. out, like legit, like landed right on the ball. There was nothing.
The first one literally got kicked out by his own offensive lineman, so it was a little weird. But yeah, again, he was really mad after that. And it was after a brilliant run that he had. So it was tough. But again, he covered up for the rest of it. So
I'm curious to see what this backfield is going to look like with Kareem Hunt, because I've been of the mindset, I've been saying all along, and this is before Nick Chubb even played this year, I said that I like Nick Chubb as a running back better than Kareem Hunt. And we've never seen Kareem Hunt outside of an Andy Reid offense. So how do you think this timeshare? I just think Nick Chubb is going to lose some of the precious volume that he's been getting. He might go from a guy that's been getting, 20 to 25 touches per game to maybe 15 to 20. And then Kareem Hunt's going to walk into maybe, 7 to 12 touches per game.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably right. I think I've been, not giving it enough credence what Hunt is going to do, just because, again, he got injured, obviously, when he first started. In addition to not being with the team at all for the entire season, it was just not something that I thought he was going to walk in there and have that volume. But the more I'm looking at it, the more I think he probably is going to. I've been really trying to hold firm on leaving Chubb where he is, which is like a very strong RB1. But if he does lose that volume, I think that's fair. For now, I'm not, I want to, let me see Hunt first. I don't think Hunt's going to walk in and immediately get, 7 to 12 touches or anything like that. But by the end of it, he definitely could. So, Chubb's run well, but it's certainly a risk going forward if you own him. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks again to our sponsor, FanDuel, where you can get $20 in FanDuel credits by going to FanDuel.com/fantasypros. Also, thanks to Pristine Auction for sponsoring our helmet giveaways. They have a ton of great items up for auction daily. Just go to PRISTINE auction.com and use the promo code FANTASYPROS in the registration field for a free $5. And finally, thanks to Away for making me and Tags basically booking a trip just to be able to use our new suitcases. Remember, you can get $20 off an Away suitcase by going to awaytravel.com/fantasypros. Enjoy the rest of your Week 8 football, everyone. Tags and Bobby will be back to take you through the waiver wire.